Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, Week 7 DraftKings picks and preview for the main slate. If you're looking for my cheat sheet, it's up on dkplaybook.com. Plus, you can always subscribe to the audio versions if you just hate seeing my smug mug or the smug mug of rotogrinders.com. CJ Kaltenback, the Siege. What's up, dude? You're the first two-time guest this year.
Hey, I appreciate that. Thanks for having me back.
No problem. I mean, you were brought on specifically to apologize to me for not including your, thanking yourself and thanking Draft Cheat for people being on the Saints D. I was with you as the actual one thing I got right last week.
Yeah, I didn't realize that actually, real life people were on it other than me. I got called all sorts of insane multiple times, so I just assumed I was on an island. So felt good to hear that other people were on the boat as well. They're still good, and people are like, oh, nope, they're terrible this week. They're not going to learn, Pat.
I mean, we'll see. I'm trying to use, I'm using a different strategy. Actually, the defense is actually where I've been most accurate so far this season in mining value, and we'll go over kind of the process that I do. I tweeted it out earlier, but if people didn't see me on Twitter, at the PME, then we'll recap it on the show. I do want to let everyone know, I'm very aware of the audio issues that we're having. It's nothing that we can fix right now. We're at a temporary location. We don't have the ability to adjust some of the equipment. I will be in my new studio very soon, and everything will be rectified. Do not worry about that. So I figured, since people are dealing with the tinny voice Mayo, that there would be some sort of giveaway, and it's a secret giveaway for right now. We ran this on Monday's show. However, in the comments section, give me your best sleeper running back below $4,500 and your best sleeper wide receiver below $4,500 on DraftKings. Leave your DraftKings handle underneath of those two picks, and you will be entered in the draw. And even if you entered the draw on Monday, if you enter it again, then boom, you have two entries, and that's even better. If you want to leave one on the iTunes is kind of tough because I can't see all the American ones, so probably don't do it there. Do it on the YouTube page, do it on Audio Boom, wherever, or even Stitcher. Wherever you can leave comments, leave the comments. Again, two sleepers below $4,500, one running back, one wide receiver, along with your DraftKings handle, and boom, you're in the draw. It's going to be something nice, I promise. All right, Siege, let's get into just general chatter about the week in terms of strategy. Last week, there were so many cheap running backs that kind of became a thing. Which 2 or 3 out of these 6 guys do I take below $5,000? And now the pricing is updated a little bit, and we don't have that luxury anymore. There's no real lock cheap running backs to go to. So what are you seeing of where the best place to attack value is this week?
It appears to be quarterback. The most expensive quarterback now is 76. We saw Tom Brady be in the mid-8s earlier in this season. So I feel like that quarterbacks are being priced down a little bit. Even guys that are talented like Jameis Winston are 6K, Russell Wilson 64. So I feel like the quarterbacks are priced down now, and running backs and receivers have been priced up, which is kind of nice because now it becomes a little, instead of just always punting quarterback, now you got to think about it a little bit more.
All right, well, let's get right into the positions and try to figure out how we can wedge some of these guys into our lineups. We'll start at running backs, and we'll try to decipher between the very top before we get into the value guys. Again, Le'Veon Bell remains the number one running back in terms of pricing. He's $9,100. He's followed by Elliott at $9,000, who's now back all of a sudden. So for anyone who watched the rankings debate show where Jake and I were debating between Morris and DMC, it's kind of irrelevant. But at the time, we didn't know. And it's a video. You can't go back and change it. It's already out. So sorry, check out the updated rankings if you want to see where Zeke ranks. I think it's number 2 or 3 or something like that. Then Fournette at 86, Gurley at 82, Shady at 74, CJ Anderson at 7,200, Melvin Gordon at 7,000, Ingram, and then Jordan Howard at $6,400. If you can afford to pay up to the top end, which I'm not sure you're going to be able to do if you want to have some semblance of a balanced lineup this week, where do you think the best spot to go is? Is it the fuck you Ezekiel Elliott week?
You would think Zeke is kind of the spot to go. I love Le'Veon Bell, and he's obviously a beast, but trusting Todd Haley to do the right thing multiple weeks and give Le'Veon Bell the ball is not exactly an island I want to be on. So I do know that Dallas will give Zeke the ball, and I do know San Francisco cannot stop the run. So I think if I'm paying up, I'm just going to pay up for Zeke.
Do you think that's a worthy move in a cash game, or is that too expensive based on what the rest of your roster would have to look like?
It's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough to get there. But it really just depends on what you want, what you're willing to do at quarterback and tight end. I think I might be able to do it, but it's going to look ugly. and I'm just going to have to be willing to admit that it's going to look ugly and just hit the enter button.
Hey, listen, it doesn't matter if it looks ugly or not. As long as it wins you the cash, then it really doesn't matter at that point. But, like, is a 9,000 Ezekiel Elliott better than, let's say, a $7,000 Melvin Gordon, who's been the top scoring running back 2 weeks in a row?
Yeah, I mean, Melvin Gordon is my top guy at this price point. The guy literally is Le'Veon Bell light right now. He's getting 30 to 40 touches a game. You know, he's making the receiving work. He's catching the ball. And you look at the back end of the depth chart. It's Brandon Oliver and Austin Eckler. I'm not too concerned about Melvin Gordon's going to start losing snaps anytime soon. So, you know, I know the Denver matchup is tough on paper, but I think Melvin Gordon's going to be really. I think he's going to do just fine at 7K. I think this is about $1,000 too cheap. So he's a guy that I'm looking at very hard in all formats.
Yeah, and even week 1, he still managed to score 19 DraftKings points against Denver. And when we watched the Sunday Nighter, although it was a bit unexpected, Orleans Darkwa was able to get work done on the ground against this defense. And through the past few years, Denver's been really good against the pass and sort of league average against the run. So it was really bizarre to see them be ranked the #1 run defense coming into last week. Maybe that was more of a mirage than anything else, that they were still giving up points to running backs, fantasy points that is. But a lot of it was to do with the receiving game. And frankly, listen, if Melvin Gordon wants to go for 150 yards, if you want to get them all through the receiving game, I'd be perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, I get credit for it either way, so it doesn't matter to me.
No, I mean, it's probably even more valuable if he does it through the passing game, too. You get those PPR points built up. What about these middle guys? Like, Fournette's dealing with the ankle, but it's a really gravy matchup. Do you think the ankle will keep people off of him?
No, I think people are just on Fournette at this point. But, like, asking me about Leonard Fournette is just, like, really not... It's not going to do your listeners a service. Like, I hate Leonard Fournette. I think he's a fraud, and I'm going to sink with this ship. Doesn't matter. It might go down like the Titanic deep, but I'm on this ship, and it's not looking very good. We're taking on tons of water, but...
I mean, this call against Fournette at the beginning of the year is, like, equivalent to an Anderhurst.
I mean, it's okay. Come on, it's not that. The guy keeps scoring 60-yard touchdowns. Like, I've watched football long enough to know that will not continue for 17 weeks. And if it does, he becomes a fade next year. Like, I know that if he literally was to score a 60-yard touchdown every week, he'd be in the Hall of Fame after like 3 years. So like, I just have to admit that, like, okay, I've take some L's now, but like, you look at his game log, still, like, he just doesn't. If that play stops, he's going to be such a huge bust at this price tag. Like, the hype is just so high on him. Like, you have to play Melvin Gordon or Mark Ingram at, like, fractions of the price first, personally.
Well, I can assure you I will not be playing Mark Ingram. That sounds like a terrible idea. I don't want to go straight to hell for using Mark Ingram, because that's what happens when you use Mark Ingram. You sell a piece of your soul every time that you use him.
Well, well, that's fine. If he keeps putting up 34 DK points, I'll gladly keep selling parts and parts each week. And, you know, this Green Bay offense now with Brett Hundley, no Aaron Rodgers, is going to be not very good. So it looks like a spot they're going to be playing from in front. So I'm hopping right back on Mark Ingram.
So you're good at a $6,700 Mark Ingram? Like, why not just play Kamara for like $1,200 cheaper?
Because I think the Saints will be playing from well in front in this spot. They're 6-point favorites right now in Vegas, in Green Bay. So that shows you the amount of confidence they have in Brett Hundley. So I think it's going to be a spot where New Orleans is going to be running the football, kind of like last week, where they're going to get up big and run the football.
I kind of like Green Bay in this game. I don't think that the Packers' offense is going to be a complete disaster without Aaron Rodgers. I think Hundley's okay.
It's going to be a complete disaster because the Saints' defense is good.
The Saints' defense isn't good. It can attack the quarterback. It's not a good defense.
What do you mean? Why is it not good?
It's not good because they can still give up a ton of passing yards in this game.
We'll talk about the Saints when we get there.
All right.
That's going to be a hot-button topic.
All right, listen, I think for a fantasy defense, they're excellent. They do exactly what you would want to do. But I don't know, as a real-life defense, I'd consider them like top 10 or anything like that.
Oh, see, I definitely would. So we'll talk about that when we get
you also think that Fournette sucks.
I didn't say he sucks.
Now, your words, Siege, he sucks.
I said preseason I said that.
Oh.
I just, again, he's not going to score 65-yard touchdowns each week. It's just not going to happen. Like, his long rushing attempts, like, he's got this. Oh, it's not going to happen every week. He's going to bust this week. This is the week.
Well, now that
I feel good about this.
Well, now that you've siege cursed him, now he's definitely going to have like 2 80-yard touchdowns.
Come on, stop it. That's not a thing.
It might. Listen, if he runs for 2 80-yard touchdowns this week, it's going to start becoming a thing.
Oh, He runs for 280-yard touchdowns. Oh, boy.
All right, so the other guys in this range, Gurley, McCoy, and CJ Anderson. CJ Anderson had a really nice week one against the Chargers, and everyone's kind of forgotten about him. The price seems like it's a bit high, but is that a decent pivot spot in giant tournaments where if Melvin Gordon's going to be chalky and some of the other guys are going to be chalky in this range? I know that the snap share now between Charles and Booker, it has gone down dramatically since week one, but this could be a really spot against not a good run defense.
Possible. I think I would pivot to Jay Ajayi first.
I mean, my biggest concern with Jay Ajayi right now, well, I really, I enjoy the price at $6,200 because the volume is there. They only run like 9 red zone plays per week, and when they're inside the red zone, they only run 40% of the time. Like, he's going to have to be Leonard Fournette and do everything himself and score like a 60-yard touchdown, or it just doesn't seem like he's going to hit pay dirt. And I'm not super impressed with what he's doing in the passing game. Like, they still use Damian Williams all the time. Like, I get the volume argument for Jay Ajayi and potentially even the talent argument. Like, he looked really good last week against Atlanta. I know the Jets do not have a good run defense, but I just worry about his upside.
I mean, you just said it right there. All the work, talented, Jets defense, and it's in Miami. Like, the Dolphins have yet to have a rushing touchdown. Like, that obviously will end. Like, they will score rushing touchdowns this season. So again, like, the price is just simply too low for a guy of this caliber. We're looking for value any which way. We're basically getting a guy who was in the, Todd Gurley, Ezekiel Elliott, Le'Veon Bell class preseason, now being priced in the same price range as Doug Martin and DeMarco Murray in a timeshare. Like, that doesn't belong. So I'll take the value where I can get it on a week where I'm desperate for it.
I mean, me personally, I'd rather pay $100 more and use Jarek. At least I know that his receiving stats will give me some sort of a floor. Do you hate Jarek too?
I don't hate Jarek. If you take out that goal line carry last week, right, where they ran Murray twice and they try to do a little trick play on third down that worked for a touchdown. Like, you take that out, is he really 6,300 this week or is he 56?
I mean, right now, with what he's doing, like I said, just through the receiving game alone, if we go back and look at the past 2 games, he has at least 6 targets in each game, he has at least 5 catches in each game, and he's gone for at least 30 yards. So, I mean, there's 9 points basically on the board right there to start off with. Plus, if you start getting him 15 carries a game, he's had 16 in each of the last 2. He's a guy who's going to get 20 touches. I mean, the Baltimore run defense isn't very good. And
but they just got their best linebacker. They just got their best defensive tackle back, like the number 2 run guy this year. I can't think of his name right at the top of my head. It just came across my timeline too.
But I actually think that's more impactful on Latavius Murray, who's going to do the majority of his running between the tackles. I mean, when you watch Jarek, they're getting him to the outside, letting him turn a corner. And if that's going to be the case, I'm still okay with it. Maybe the goal line touches won't materialize like you said last week. He kind of got fluky and went into one. But I think he has enough upside. Like, I would wager that he has a better chance of scoring a touchdown than Jay Ajayi does. And then you get all those receivers.
Way better bet to get 100 yards rushing.
Sure, but Jerick McKinnon's also better to get 10 points through the receiving game, where Ajayi might get none.
Possible. I think I'm just gonna. It's the Jets secondary. The defense. I just think Jay Ajayi is the better guy. Like, McKinnon might have the better chance to get the 10 points. Jay Ajayi has the better chance of scoring 2 touchdowns.
Maybe, but I mean, Jerick keeps scoring 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, but I don't suspect that's going to last forever. This is not a great spot for them. This is a really slow game. I think I want to attack the talent of Jay Ajayi right now before he has that blow-up game, and then everyone hops back onto him when he's like 7,800 next week.
All right, well, what about the last 2 from the upper tier? Gurley and McCoy are $8,200 and $7,400. I can see Gurley getting it going against the Cardinals over in London, but it kind of worries me a little bit. But Shady is sort of like the rich man's Jerick McKinnon, who doesn't score touchdowns right now. You know he's going to be involved in the passing game because the Bills are so beat up at receiver. If he could just score a touchdown, like, he'd be paying off his price in spades, wouldn't he?
Yeah. I think the price is too high for Gurley.
Well, what about Shady then?
I don't really like that game too much. I understand it, but like, he keeps getting trolled by Mike Tolbert. Like, the guy has 0 touchdowns in the season, and I just wonder, like, if they get inside the 3, it's gonna be Mike Tolbert running up the middle. I don't want to deal with that.
All right. Well, the rest of the guys as we go down in the sub $6,000 area, you have like your McCaffrey's at 61, Doug Martin, Carlos Hyde against Dallas. AP, I mean, AP is back on the scene. Got to use AP, probably not, but he's there. Kamara, Derrick Henry, Ty Montgomery, Buck Allen, Aaron Jones is $5,200. Do you have any interest in these $5,000 running backs?
The only guy I have interest in here is Christian McCaffrey because you just talked about receiving floor. That's all he does basically. He's like a wide receiver that plays running back. So I think he will start getting more carries too. Like Jonathan Stewart has just been pathetic the last 3 weeks. So I think he'll get some more carries on the. They had the 10-day break, maybe some time to add some new plays for McCaffrey. So I think he's interesting at 61. But that's really my only interest level. You can't play any of these other guys really. Like AP against the Rams, like, I kind of need to see that again. Like, okay, I get he was motivated to perform well last week, but long flight to London, weird turf. Let's see it again.
Well, and there becomes a circumstance, and I'm convinced of it, that every time that Arizona is not leading in a game or like within a field goal, that we're not even going to see Adrian Peterson on the field. So being a 3.5-point underdog, if the Rams do jump out to like a 10-0 lead, I think Ellington's in the game.
Yeah, exactly. There's one more guy, too, that I like in the 5K range. It's Joe Mixon at 5K.
I see. Well, one sec. What about Carlos Hyde?
I'm not dealing with that situation.
What situation? It was 1 week where the snaps went the other way, and although they said he wasn't dealing with a hip injury, watching him play, he was very clearly dealing with a hip injury. That wasn't the case last week. He was back to getting all of his snaps. Like, Dallas defense isn't any good.
Because he was the hot hand.
Oh, hot hand. You really believe that it's the hot hand approach? Does anyone actually do that?
I mean, tell that to Carlos Hyde 2 weeks ago.
Tell it to Carlos Hyde.
Looked like they did it.
Tell us to Carlos Hyde's injury 2 weeks ago. Yeah, you ride the hot hand because he was hurt and couldn't do anything.
I think honestly, I like the passing attack for the 49ers way more than the rushing pass attack this week.
Oh, so you want to get on beat hard and hit it hard?
Well, we'll talk about that. But I like Hyde. I like Hyde the player. I don't like Hyde the situation. Again. Like, I think I would just play Ajayi for 300 more. Like, I don't have to deal with that timeshare nonsense.
All right. So Joe Mixon, he's facing Pittsburgh's defense. Pittsburgh has the best pass defense right now to shutting down his opposing wide receivers. They have a very weak run defense. It would make a lot of sense to use Joe Mixon a bunch, but if the Steelers get up in this game, I can envision a scenario where Mixon's not in. But if they can control the game that way, I'm kind of on board with you. I do like Joe Mixon a little bit.
Yeah, I think he has more receiving upside, too, than people want to let on. So I think at 5K, we're desperate for guys that are going to get touches, consistent touches here. And we know he's going to get 15 to 18 touches here in this game. So I like him. And then Duke Johnson right below him, I think, is viable. Back with Deshaun Kaiser back now in that starting role. 4,900 for him. He's shown a propensity to throw the ball to Duke a fair amount.
Yeah, I really like Duke here in this situation as well. So I made a list of guys sort of in the sub $5,000 area. I'm just going to list them off, and you tell me which ones you have a little bit of intrigue into, and guys you just cross right off the list. So
it's going to be all of them, by the way.
Okay. It might. Well, let's talk about them anyway. So just saying no. Why don't you hear me out on some of them? So we have. I'm just going to mention Chris Ivory just in case Fournette doesn't play, which is. It might be a 10% chance of happening, but he's not practicing Wednesday with the ankle. And, if all of a sudden Friday comes along, he's not playing, then you have to auto-dial up Chris Ivory in at $4,800 and not worry about it. I just want to throw that out there. Andre Ellington, who I just mentioned, if this becomes a game where the Rams get up, he's only $4,300. Even if he plays 50% of the snaps, he pays off that price pretty quickly. It's just him getting to the 50% of snaps that becomes somewhat problematic. You have Marlon Mack and Frank Gore at $4,100, and you know that the way to get to the Jags is to run the ball. I don't know which one I prefer. I don't even have a lot of confidence in them. That's a super cheap price if you were taking a flyer. CJ Prosites is going to be back. I still think he has the most talent in that Seattle backfield. He might not handle a lot of the work between the tackles, but again, that's a very cheap price for a receiving back who could be in the game for 50% of the snaps here. And then Orleans Darkwa at $3,700 in that same game against Seattle. It's a tough matchup, and I don't really trust the Giants all that much, but if you're looking for savings, he seems like a guy that probably gets 15 touches. Any one of those guys intrigue you?
You got me a little bit on CJ Prosites. Like, I could see that working out. I could also see a guy you didn't mention. Like this guy also got no work because they got way in front, but if they fall behind against Seattle, Shane Vereen could be an option at 36.
Would you bank, like, if you had to go between those, like, PPR specialists, do you think it'd be better to use Vereen and bank on them trailing in that game, or use Ellington and bank on Arizona falling behind against Los Angeles?
I feel much more confident that the Giants are going to fall behind versus Seattle than the other way around.
Now, the Giants, new best team in the league. Didn't you see them Sunday night?
No, actually, I did not watch that game. I'm going to assume that's an outlier, so I'm not even going to watch it at any point.
All right, let's switch to receivers, and again, we'll go to the very top. Unfortunately, we can't smash the Julio Jones breakout week on the main slate because he's playing in the Sunday night. Are you worried about that game as a Patriots fan?
I'm not worried about Julio Jones. I'm worried about that game.
You're worried that they might lose?
Yeah, I think it's a fair assessment. I'm worried about Tom Brady's health. I think we're not getting the whole story.
Really? You think there's shadiness going on with New England? Color me blind on that one. Like, really? I would not have expected that.
Yeah, ha 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 ha.
You take your Super Bowls and go fuck off. Seriously.
That's fine. Fine by me.
You're cheating, hiding injuries, doing all this stuff.
He's on the injury report. He's listed, and he's on the injury report.
You don't even believe the injury report.
I don't believe that's the real injury, but at least he's on there.
Fair enough. All right, at the very top of the receivers this week, you get an $8,900 Antonio Brown against Cincinnati. A.J. Green is next at $8,300. Then Dez, Evans, Michael Thomas, Larry Fitzgerald. That's your $7,000 to $8,000. Then Kelvin Benjamin, a questionable Stefan Diggs, Jordy Nelson, and then Jarvis Landry, followed by Adam Thielen at $6,700. For me, cross off right away. I'm never playing Stefan Diggs in weeks where he is limited in practice. He has just shown a propensity to underperform in those situations. He kind of needs to be at full health, and I'm just going to kind of bank on that. Not to say that I'm just going to move all my shares onto Thielen like I did last week, because if Diggs is active, he's still going to get a few targets and everything like that, so the market share won't necessarily be there against a better pass defense in Baltimore than they faced last week. But I'm really intrigued by A.J. Green in this matchup. $8,300, he has the toughest matchup of the week, but he's still going to get all the volume. John Ross is back, and while I don't really like John Ross, I think he provides an element to that offense where the safeties just can't bracket A.J. Green. They still might be able to double cover him, but they do need someone over the top just to contain John Ross sprinting down the field in case Andy Dalton just wants to check one up. But I don't want to say easily project double-digit targets for A.J. Green, but you go back and look what he's done against the Steelers over the years, and he's absolutely eaten them up.
I'm with you. I love A.J. Green this week. I think this Steelers defense's good narrative is kind of nonsense. They just gave up 30 points to Blake Bortles 2 weeks ago. Did everyone forget about that?
They didn't give up 30 points to Blake Bortles 2 weeks ago. Blake Bortles threw 2 touchdown passes, or Ben Roethlisberger threw 2 touchdown passes, and that doesn't count against their defense. Like, there was 2 pick sixes.
So they gave up 14, 17. Like, it's still not optimal. Like, they gave up 17 to the Browns. I'm sorry, not the Browns, the Bears, and they gave up 18 to DeShone Kizer in the Browns. Like, who's the best receiver they've played this season? Stephon Diggs?
Yeah. Or Thielen, I guess.
I mean, A.J. Green's a whole nother level. Like, maybe they're the number one pass defense, but this is a pure mirage. They've faced Kizer, Keenum, Glennon, Flacco, Bortles, and Alex Smith. Yeah, no, that's not really going to do it for me. Like, Andy Dalton probably is better than all those guys. And A.J. Green is clearly the best receiver yet. A.J. Green has a history of mashing this team. I'm going to gladly attack A.J. Green here. I think he's one of the few guys that's a little too cheap this week. I love him this week. I'm with you.
Do you think that we're going to get him at super low ownership?
Yeah, I think we are.
So this is setting up to be the take the talent over matchup week at low ownership and just hope it works out?
Yeah, I think so. I don't even think the Pittsburgh defense is that good. So I don't even think it's that. I think it's just like people are just getting locked on to like, oh, they're number one without looking like, well, who have they played? Yeah, that's one of the biggest factors. It's still early in the season. We have 6 weeks of data sample size. It's not like we have 200 data points at this point. It's 6.
Yeah, and listen, I'm with you. If you can give me like a 5% owned or less A.J. Green in a game where he probably gets 12 targets and they might have to be playing from behind, then
I'm just mashed in this spot at under 5%. He just did this, and then everyone's just like, nah, we're not going back to it. Like, okay.
Yeah, especially with a week off to actually prepare for this game, too, and really come up with some decent schemes. I like AJ Green. I wouldn't use him in cash games, though. I would find alternative routes to go in cash because I still am a little, unlike you, I'm a little bit worried about the matchup. Now, in tournaments, I don't care because I'm going to get the upside that goes along with AJ Green at no ownership. I'm hitting that 100% of the time. But I think I can find a more balanced approach in cash games.
Yeah, I would have no issue plugging in AJ Green in cash games. His target floor is so high.
All right, well, what about someone like Mike Evans against Buffalo? I mean, that's not the greatest matchup, but he should be a target hog in this game. I worry about Jameis's shoulder. Dez Bryant has the simplest matchup ever for what he does against San Francisco. Michael Thomas, maybe as a tournament play, coming off a really bad week when people used him, might be a spot to look at.
I still don't understand how he was chalked last week. Can you explain that one to me? Against Darius Slay, that's one of the best corners in football. Why were... I guess I don't get that, but Mike Evans at 7,600, wide receiver ones against Buffalo have been mashing this year. I remember when Julio Jones was chalked against Buffalo and he got hurt, and then people didn't go back to the spot with AJ Green, and they mashed. I just think this is a really good situation for Mike Evans. Winston might be hurt a little bit, but it looked like he could have come back in last week, and the team was just let's just hold off. This game is really not. We're not going to win this game, so let's just make sure you're healthy, ready to go. He looks like he's going to be ready to go this week. So I feel pretty good about Mike Evans. I feel like he's a little too cheap. He's had a run of really tough matchups, and this is his easiest one in a while.
Yeah, he's had a run of really tough matchups, and he's actually produced in all of them. He ended up with the garbage time touchdown last week, scored 18.5 points, only 10 the week before that against New England, the spot for him. But then he was 17, 13.5, 22. His touchdown potential among wide receivers has to be, top 3 of any receiver every week?
Yeah, and he's a beast. And this is his best matchup in a while. So I think this is a spot where he can absolutely go 8 for 130 and 2. I think that ceiling is in his range this week.
Do you have any other interest in the Fitzgeralds, the Diggs, Jarvis Landry, Thielen, Doug Baldwin? Because I'm going to be using some Jordy Nelson at $6,800. Like I said, I don't think this offense is as inept as people tend to think. No one's going to use Jordy Nelson, and I think he's good enough to do a lot of the stuff by himself.
I don't play receivers against Marcus Lattimore. I'm out.
You're out, just completely out.
Marcus Lattimore, legit number 1 corner. I'm not touching, especially with Brett Hundley throwing the football.
Didn't Marvin Jones catch a touchdown over him last week?
Okay, so even the best corners can give up a touchdown once in a while. He's still very good, and I'm not attacking. But with Brett Hundley throwing the football, I'm just not.
Well, if this gets into a situation where the Saints jump up in the game, let's say they're up 14-0, you might see 40, 45 pass attempts from Hundley, and you know who he's going to target? It's Jordy Nelson.
The Saints defense? No, if you 40 to 45 pass attempts from Brett Hundley. Whew.
Well, if they get down, what are they going to do? Run the ball every time?
I mean, I'm with you, but you're just making my case for me.
I don't see a reason where if we're...
Brett Hundley's that bad, Pat.
Is he? I don't know if he's that bad. I don't know if he is or not.
He's that bad.
All right, against the best defense in the league, the Saints. I guess you have to watch out, right?
Yeah, no one's called them the best defense in the league. Let's stop going so far here. But they're good.
They're all right. They're a league average defense this year, with a very good pass rush.
Well, again, if Brett Hundley has to throw the football 48 times, that pass rush can get the win.
If Devontae Parker doesn't play, and it looks like he's on track to play, would Jarvis Landry just lock him in again because he's going to get 14 targets?
Cash, probably not in tournaments. I just don't know what the 2 touchdown upside is for him.
Sure. Then it goes 6,300. You got Keenan Allen, T.Y. Hilton, Funches, Devontae Adams, Pierre Garçon, Demaryius Thomas draws, without Emmanuel Sanders around, is $5,800. And I don't know if people are going to be all over that or all off of it because of the matchup, but that price seems more than fair, if nothing else.
Yeah, tough matchup. Casey Hayward hasn't been as elite this year, but it's more Trevor Siemian is terrible and pretty hobbled. We don't know how healthy he really is going to be. So I get it. I think I would just play Rashard Matthews for $300 less.
Do you worry that Decker took on a bigger role in the Monday Nighter and that maybe the market share for Matthews goes down? And I worry about his touchdown upside against the Browns with, either Delaney Walker or Super Now going to catch every touchdown because they're tight ends and the Browns just don't seem to acknowledge that position exists.
I mean, I think that's more the Vontae Davis effect on Rashard Matthews, right? Like tough outside corner, so we'll throw it over the middle a bit more.
Maybe so, but are we really sweating Vontae Davis still at this point? Like, is he still an elite corner? Like, I'm not quite sure about that.
I think he's a pretty good corner. I don't think you could just be like he's bad.
I'm not saying that he's bad. I mean, he's really good compared to the rest of the guys that they have, and maybe that's the thing. But I don't think that he's not someone. If I say he's not Patrick Peterson, for example. Like, if I see Vontae Davis is lining up, it's not like, oh, I can't play that guy. Like, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, it's just more like I'm going to be willing to give him a pass on, not being an active part of that game because Vontae Davis was there and they couldn't cover anyone else. So, like, why would I throw to the one guy that could actually burn me when no one else can stop us? So, and he's free. He's 5,500 for a guy that has, like, he still had 10.4 DK points last week. It's not like he was terrible.
It's not. You're right. It's not like he's terrible at all. But in this situation, I think a lot of it, some of those DK points and some of the targets that he ended up with last week had to do with the fact that the Titans were down in that game for a substantial portion. And if we look at this game against the Browns, where they're favored, they might just run the ball 50 times.
I'm more optimistic once again on the Cleveland offense than the field. And maybe that will burn me, but I'm optimistic that this game's going to turn into a bit of a shootout. So. I love Rashard Matthews at 55. He's one of my favorite plays of the week.
Okay. Anyone else in the $5,000 area, whether it be Randall Cobb, obviously you're out on him. Sterling Shepard may play. I'm not quite certain yet. We'll know Friday, and you can tune back into the Pat Mayo Experience injury recap show to find out if he's playing or if he's not, but we don't know that at the moment. Well, let's say he does play. Like, he's like leaps and bounds their best receiver now. Like, does he end up with like 14 targets, even if it's against Sherman?
I don't know if I could feel confident about playing a Giants receiver against Seattle's defense.
Yeah, I'm not super confident about it either. I'm just throwing it out there that if we're targeting volume in this situation, that could be a high volume spot.
I can't argue with that. I'm not sure it's a spot I'm going to feel very comfortable putting real life dollars on, but I understand it.
That's fair. All right, so again, the guys below $5,000, almost like we did with the running backs, I kind of want to run through this list, and then I have one spotlight that I want to get to as well, and I'll just run through the $4,000 guys. Jermaine Kearse, $4,700. Cooper Kupp, $4,600. Marquise Lee, $4,300. Ted Ginn, $4,100. Alan Hearns, $4,100. And one of my favorite plays of the week, Robert Woods, $4,000 in the London game. Do we know if Patrick Peterson's playing or not yet? Or is that something we're going to find out like late Friday or even into Sunday morning?
Yeah, I think it's going to go right to the wire.
So if he plays, okay, let's say he doesn't play. Would you use Sammy Watkins?
There's just been no chemistry there between him and Goff. I think I can't play him at this point.
See, I really like, that's one of the reasons why I really like Robert Woods. Like, he's been the consistent force in this offense week to week to week to week. He gets, he has a substantial part of the market share of the passing game. Receiver 2 and 3s have lit up Arizona every single week whenever Patrick Peterson's playing, and he takes out the number 1 guy. And if you can get like 6 to 8 targets from Robert Woods at $4,000 with the potential to break one or even be used in the red zone, I think you have to jump at that. It seems like a pretty good price. I'd use him in cash games.
Wow. I was with you right until you got to the cash game part.
Well, I need to save money somewhere. Right? Everyone that we talked about, I'm way over the salary cap at this point.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I understand it for sure. Those are the type of decisions you're going to have to make this week. The idea of Robert Woods in cash is terrifying. Scary thought.
Listen, I agree with you, but the situation, the volume, and the matchup all points to Robert Woods. Now, I'm constantly wrong on these things, so maybe it just blows up in my face. But I've identified a spot where I think that I can find some value. And honestly, at $4,000, he doesn't have to do a ton to return that. What's that, 6 for 60? He can do that.
Yeah, definitely could.
All right. Spotlight right now. Bills receivers. Let's get into this because Tampa Bay's defense is awful. I kind of like Tyrod this week, and all of them are super cheap. Now, Jordan Matthews has been cleared to practice with his thumb injury, but there's no guarantee that he's going to play yet. So the two guys that I'm looking at are the awful Zay Jones, who can't catch, which is problematic, but he's $3,600. Brandon Tate is $3,500. For reference, Jordan Matthews is $3,700. I know this is a terrifying situation and one that seems odd to target, but they're so cheap in a week where you really do want to pay up for some quality guys that if you can hit the right one in this bunch, I think that it could pay off really, really well. Do you have a preference of one of those guys, or is Nick O'Leary filling in for Charles Clay at $3,100 at tight end a better way to go? He had 5 catches on 7 targets after Clay went out against Cincinnati 2 weeks ago and could be integrated more into this offense as well.
I think it's tough for me to play anyone that's not named Jordan Matthews.
So let's say Jordan Matthews plays then. Do you smash in?
Yeah, I think I'll have interest. I mean, it really depends, too, on how healthy the Tampa D gets, too. Like, if they get their guys back, like, I don't know if I'm going to love this spot as much as maybe I do now. Because they have some talent. It's just all been out.
Well,
so
as of right now, it doesn't seem like they're getting many pieces back. Now, that obviously that could change. Check back in Friday, but if all things being equal, it's the same basic Tampa defense that we've seen for like the past 3 weeks. I actually think if Jordan Matthews sit, I might play some Brandon Tate here. He's a big play guy. I'm not playing him in cash, but he is. Listen, the guy's a kick returner. You have to give him like a bubble screen. He could break it to the house, and if he's going to get like 8 shots at it, like what's really the difference between him and like Marquise Goodwin?
I'm not arguing with you. I'm just sick to my stomach talking about guys like this.
All right, let's say it's one of these weeks where you got to pay down. If you can find some value anywhere, I think you got to nail it.
Makes me love Melvin Gordon that much more.
The safety of Melvin Gordon.
Yeah.
All right, there are actually 3 guys below that price point that I wanted to run by you very quickly. One is with Deshaun Kaiser back under center. Kason Williams was building up a rapport with him before he got benched for Kevin Hogan. He's $3,400. Benny Fowler, who's going to replace Emmanuel Sanders, is $33,000. Our preseason sensation, Jordan Taylor, expected to be active at $3,000. If he ends up manning the slot, that's been an area where you can attack the Chargers. We saw Benny Fowler do it week 1 when he scored those touchdowns. He's the min price at receiver. Does that intrigue you whatsoever, or are you just off Trevor Siemian?
It really depends on what the reports on Trevor Siemian are. A 3K wide receiver that I think will play a fair amount of snaps always has interest, but if the quarterback is that hurt and like I'm worried about an in-game replacement with Brock Osweiler, it would be really tough to click the name.
All right, well, so keep up on the reports. Again, Friday show, injury report. We'll have more news on Trevor Siemian and how injured that he is. Let's switch to quarterbacks now. And you kind of brought this up off the top that the guys are a bit cheaper. The ones that I have highlighted are Drew Brees, the most expensive guy. Why don't you calm down on the typing there, Siege?
Sorry.
That's a real aggressive typing.
It's a mental note to go look at Taylor later on.
Oh, perfect. So listen, I am not devoid of decent information. It's like a bad ratio between good information and bad information, but I feel like that's one I'm on top of. In fairness, I saw Levitan tweet it out earlier, and I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So shout out to Levitan on that one. Quarterbacks, though. Drew Brees, highest price guy, only $7,600. You seem to like this matchup a lot, but could it go sort of the way it did last week, where if you expect the Saints to get out by a bunch and you expect Mark Ingram to get around like 25 touches, does that really kill the upside of Drew Brees?
Yeah, it does for me. I understand if you think this game shoots out why you would play Drew Brees. The price is probably a little too cheap, but this is a week where I think I'm going to have to save at quarterback. Like there's just so much value options and not a whole lot of value on the board. So instead of having to play lots of guys like Jordan Taylor, I think I'd rather play lots of insert 5K quarterback here, and it's Sunday, so there's these things called bars that help you watch some of these games.
All right, so the $5,000 quarterbacks, which ones really intrigue you? Because for me, Tyrod at 51 is probably the best of the cheap guys in my mind. And I'm going to, listen, screw it. I'm taking a shot on Brett Hundley. If everyone thinks he sucks, maybe he doesn't. Comes out against, I know facing the world's greatest defense of all time is going to be tough, but, maybe they're not. And all of a sudden, Brett Hundley's in a good spot. Maybe Jordy Nelson can do it all for him.
I mean, I think the two guys I would play are Deshaun Kaiser and CJ Beathard at
Okay,
4,900.
if Brett Hundley sucks, why do we think that Beathard's any good?
He was decent at Iowa. He looked good last week in relief, as opposed to Hundley, who looked as bad as you could look in relief. And it's a pretty good situation against a Dallas secondary that's pretty injury depleted, runs a lot of zone, and he's got his college roommate on his team. So, he's got some definite connection there with one of the best receiving options on the board for value. So I think Beathard's in a good spot to throw the ball a fair amount. We know Kyle Shanahan likes to throw the football. He drafted this guy, so I think that's a very viable option. And then Deshaun Kaiser, look, he's just not going to get benched mid-game again. I know Cody Kessler's now the backup, which is slightly concerning, but if you bench the guy for a week, then bring him back and then bench him at halftime, you're going to kill the kid's confidence forever. The Tennessee secondary is terrible. There's a rushing floor with Kaiser. I know he looked bad. I know he's a Cleveland quarterback, but the ceiling for him still is sky high. So I'm going to have to roll out Deshaun Kaiser one more time, and understanding that involves a lot of variance.
I'm actually kind of with you on Kaiser. I think the rushing floor is high enough to make him, he doesn't have to do a ton to achieve value here if you're paying down at quarterback. I don't know if I'd want to roll with him in tournaments, though, because I really don't know what his upside is, because he kind of shoots himself in the foot with all the turnovers.
Kevin Hogan literally could not have played a worse game in the history of quarterbacking and still ended up with 10 DK points.
Yeah, but 10 DK points isn't winning you anything.
But if 15 could.
Could it? At quarterback? Really? Listen.
What quarterback do you think is going to go out there and smash for 30 this week?
I think Russell Wilson could do it.
Okay.
I think there's the potential for Mariota to do it as well, that if they get the red zone opportunities and all of a sudden he's just passing and they're not running, which is possible, or he rushes it in, I think that he might have the highest ceiling of any quarterback this week.
Okay. That's two guys.
Two guys? Who else on this list? I mean, Jared Goff could light up Arizona.
Oh, come on. That's about as much of a long shot as Kaiser is at that point.
The only other one I will say is Phillip Rivers, just because of the touchdown upside. Because he passes to Melvin Gordon in the red zone.
I mean, it's possible, but that's a tough secondary to just be like, hey, he's just going to go light him up on fire.
Hey, Phillip Rivers had a good week 1 in Denver against Denver.
Sure, but by a good week, you mean 18 DK points. If he goes for 18 and Kaiser goes for 15, I'll take the Kaiser 15.
Sure. Well, I mean, would you say that Carson Palmer has no upside here?
I don't know what to do with that guy.
I mean, if we're talking about just pure upside on the board, two guys that probably, I don't know how owned Dak Prescott's going to be, but if Zeke doesn't score all the touchdowns, they're going to score against San Francisco. So, and Dak still has the potential to rush it in himself as well. I mean, Cam's right below him. There's enough guys on the slate with upside.
But I understand that, but then, you can't fit in Le'Veon Bell, right?
Sure, but if I'm going to get, here's the thing, though. It seems like you can find equivalent value to Bell from Melvin Gordon, who's $2,000 cheaper. If I pay up $1,500 or even $2,000 from Kaiser up to one of these top guys, I feel like the upside potential for Cam and Wilson and Mariota and those guys is 35 points, where the upside for Kaiser is probably 20.
Oh, he's got a higher ceiling than that.
Does he?
He can rush for 2 touchdowns.
He could. He's not.
What do you mean he's not? You don't know that.
I'm pretty good. What did he score against Indy week 3? 25 points. In week
25.
In week 1, he scored 19. In the other weeks, he had 4, 4, and 5.
Okay.
So you're also dealing with
life.
True, but you're also dealing with incredible downside too if you go in that.
I also should note, by the way, Kaiser faced in a murderer's row of defenses, like Baltimore, Cincinnati, and the Jets. That's not exactly cupcake central. And the 2 good matchups he had, Pittsburgh and Indy, he did quite well.
I mean, the Jets are bottom 8 defense. I mean, I know he didn't play the all-world Saints. I mean, that would just make it the toughest schedule in the world. But, I mean, I listen, if he didn't go to Notre Dame, you wouldn't be as high on the guy.
I hated him coming out of college. It's a high rushing floor against a terrible defense, and he's 4,900. That's the case. It's the same case. If Kevin Hogan was starting, I would have been making the same case about Kevin Hogan.
Why isn't Tyrod Taylor a better play then? In a better matchup?
Because you literally, without cheating, you couldn't have named 3 of his wide receiver passing targets.
Sure, but the whole thing is his rushing floor, and he passes to LaShawn McCoy. And he's better than Kaiser, and he's $200 more.
but he's only going to throw the ball in the 20s, like 28 passing attempts, 25 passing attempts, 26, 20, like 37 in that last game, but like they were just way behind. Like,
Yeah, but I mean, what you're not talking about in those games where he has 20 pass attempts and 26 pass attempts, 8 rushes, 7. Like, he gets work done on the ground, and he has the potential to score rushing touchdowns as well. Like, his rushing floor is basically the same as Kaiser's.
I kind of disagree with that. Like his last 3 starts, 3, 12, and 13 rushing yards. That's not the same floor. That's not a floor at all.
I mean, the first 2 games there, he had 55 and 40. So I mean, some weeks
you didn't say ceiling.
Sure, but I mean, if we're gonna
Kaiser's had double-digit rushing yards in every start, and that includes ones he got benched at halftime in. So like, I think I would take Kaiser over Taylor. I think I have more respect for the Tampa defense than you.
Well, the Tampa defense is really banged up, and it doesn't seem like they're getting any healthier.
I get that. I think they have enough talent to get through. Buffalo is just, they're not that good of an offense.
Do we need to make a Tyrod versus Kaiser wager here?
I don't feel that confident in it, but I just think I'll take Kaiser at the low. I think Tyrod's already getting buzz. I don't want to do that.
I mean, he should be getting buzz. He's a pretty good play this week. I like him. But if you are going to pay up into that middle range, which it seems like not a lot of people are going to do, I think a lot of people will just pay down at quarterback this week. Of those mid-tier quarterbacks, do you have a preference, and is it Russell Wilson?
It's Russell Wilson or Marcus Mariota. I think you definitely nailed the guys I would attack. Again, they've got some rushing floor, and we've honestly just seen quarterback after quarterback just march against Cleveland, throw for 3 touchdowns, and rush for 1. And I think people are going to get scared off Mariota because he didn't look all that great on Monday Night Football. But the Cleveland Browns defense could fix a lot of those problems for you.
Is there a stack that you would go with him? Would you triple stack like Rashard Matthews and Delaney Walker with him? Or would you just play solo Mariota and just try to soak up all the points because you might not know where it's going?
I think I would play some teams with Rashard and a couple teams with Delaney.
Okay. Let's move to tight ends and talk about Delaney Walker, who is the highest priced tight end of the week, $5,800 in the best spot of the week against the Browns. Seems like a bit much for Delaney Walker, but then you start going through these names, and there's not a lot of options. All the best tight ends are playing primetime this week, and they're not on the main slate, so it makes it real tricky. Delaney Walker's number 1, Austin Seferian-Jenkins is number 2 at $5,000. Jimmy Graham's in a great spot against the Giants, who give up a ton of points to tight ends. He's only $4,900. Brate keeps scoring touchdowns. And you got Jason Witten, Evan Ingram, Hunter Henry, who's on the rise, Kyle Rudolph, your boy George Kittle at only $3,600 might be the smash play this week for his target floor, but I kind of like Evan Ingram as well. I could go on to him, and I'm actually kind of in the Nick O'Leary camp. He's $3,100. Tyrod has very few options to pass to. That's a very easy pass to complete. Like, I don't think that Charles Clay was the best tight end in the history of time. I just think that he kept getting peppered with target after target, and he tended to be wide open all the time. I think that O'Leary, for a floor, it's not as good of the floor as Kittle's probably going to have, but I think it's an interesting option if Kittle's going to be like 35% owned in tournaments.
That's too low for Kittle.
You think so?
Me. I think I love the Kittle spot. Like, it is. I can't think of a better spot. A guy who's gotten a ton of targets already, now gets his quarterback he played with in college, loves throwing him the football, in a spot against a team that doesn't really have a good coverage linebacker, and a spot where you're going to expect the 49ers to have to be throwing the football the whole time. Tough not to love Kittle.
Do you think a lot of people are going to look at what Jack Doyle did Monday night and go onto him for a cheaper price?
I hope so.
I think that they might, and they'll see like the nice green matchup ranking next to his name as well.
That's always nice, for sure. I just think if I was going to not play Kittle, it would be for Graham or Brate. Like, I love Graham's spot against the Giants. We know tight ends against the Giants just destroy life. So I think that price is too cheap for him. And Cameron Brate just keeps scoring touchdowns every week, and it's not a huge ask. I know it's not the best matchup in the world, but if you think Tampa's going to get 2 touchdowns, like if you were assigning touchdown equity, it'd be Mike Evans 1 and probably Brate 2.
I guess the only guy that I could see in that circumstance, and I mentioned him right off the top, that if Sterling Shepard doesn't play, I just think that you're looking at a lot of opportunity for Evan Ingram, who kind of gets to man the part of the field against the Seahawks where they're not the strongest.
My problem with that is, like, I just don't know which one of their 5 tight ends they run out there on the field is going to catch the ball. Like, it could be Ingram, could also be Jamal Adams, it could be Matt Lacoste, it could be Rhett Ellison. They play them all, so it's just pass.
See, I like it. I'm going to be in on Evan Ingram. I'll be in on Kittle, and I'll have some exposure to Nico Leary as well. For whatever reason, I keep wanting to call him Nico Hearn, who's like a terrible golfer from 15 years ago, who once beat Tiger in a match play. That's the only reason anyone knows him. He's a lefty with a big, stupid, long putter. But either way, to tie in the golf reference, did you know that according to the broadcast that they told me 18,000 times 2 weeks ago that Nico Leary is Jack Nicklaus's grandson?
I was aware of that because I rostered this guy in college football DFS back in the day. So
you know that he's pretty good.
He is pretty good. I just am playing George Kittle first.
The only other guy that I'll throw out there, and Celia and I talked about this on the Rankings debate show, like if you were looking for a streaming tight end and no one was available, the touchdown equity of Tyler Kroft. If anyone can score 2 touchdowns, I feel like it's him, but he could also just post zeros across the board. But he's only $3,000.
Yeah, I do like Tyler Kroft. That's a good call.
Finally, defenses. So I said I'd talk about this a little bit, and a lot of success that I've had, and one of the reasons that I landed on the Saints last week was just by sorting by adjusted sack rate on Football Outsiders by DVOA, just finding teams inside the top 10 in terms of pass rush, and see if they're playing teams versus a bottom 10 offensive line. And I found 4 of those defenses this week. It is Jacksonville, the Rams, the Chargers, and Bears are teams that all have I had it as top 8 pass rushes against bottom 8 offensive lines. And I think the Bears are super intriguing because if there's a place to save money this week, they're $2,200, the Chargers are $2,400, and the Rams are $2,600. Like, I would love to smash Jacksonville in every possible situation here with them going up against Jacoby Brissett, Saxonville everywhere in that game, but it's a lot of money to pay for a defense in a week where you need to save money in spots.
Yeah, I think I like the Chargers the most of that group. I don't really see myself playing the Bears. I get it. I can see him returning a touchdown. I just don't really know if I want to attack Cam Newton's been better, and I don't know if I really want to attack a defense against him. But
Cam still gives up a ton of sacks, though.
Yeah, no, I agree. I understand why you would do it for sure. I just think the Chargers for 200 more offers a safer floor.
And once we learn more about Simeon as well, if he's banged up, or God forbid Brock Osweiler play, like I feel like the Rams are. Who do you think the chalk is going to be at defense? Because it seems like a spot where people are going to save money. I would assume it would be.
I thought it was going to be the Saints, and then everyone's telling me it's not, and it makes me very happy inside.
See, I assumed it would be the Rams. I think that Jacksonville and the Rams and the Vikings are probably the 3 best fantasy defenses, price aside, this week.
Possible, for sure.
But the Saints are kind of pricey. They're $3,000 when you can save $800 or $600.
But they're good.
They're all right.
The last 3 weeks they've allowed 288 yards, 186, and 347. Like, they're good. They have 4 sacks in each of those, 4+ sacks in each of those games. They have 7 interceptions over the last 3 games. Like, I don't understand why people think they're bad. Because they were bad in week 1 when
no one thinks that they're bad.
No
one thinks that they're bad, but no one thinks that they're great. I mean, they are basically a league average defense.
They were up like 50-0 in that game, and they played prevent. And like, okay, the Lions scored some touchdowns against a prevent defense. Like, yip-de-doo-dah day. Like, they've allowed like 70 less rushing yards each of the last 2 games. They turn into a funnel defense. They're going to be able to rush Brett Hundley, who was throwing bad ball after bad ball all game long. He was not good at UCLA. He was not good in the preseason. He wasn't good in the regular season. I'm just going to load up on the Saints until someone tells me that they're going to be 40% because they should be in this spot. A terrible quarterback has to throw the ball 40+ times. I dream of spots like this, Pat. It's unbelievable.
I just think you can save the money with the Chargers, and the Chargers are basically the same right now as the Saints in terms of what I expect their floor to be in terms of scoring fantasy points this week, and you get them for $600 less.
Yeah, but the ceiling on the Saints, if like Brett Hundley has to throw the ball, like what's the maximum Trevor Siemian pass attempts in this spot? Like 35?
35 potentially. I mean, I guess it really depends on how you think this game goes. If this is a game where you think the Chargers can actually put up points early, it could be a lot more than that.
It's just Brett Hundley is just so bad.
I mean,
he threw 3 interceptions in 3 last week.
I mean, let's not pretend that the Saints defense is the Vikings defense either, by the way.
Why not?
Because the Vikings defense is better.
Well, why? Why do you say that?
Because you watch them, and they have these better players on their team, and they tend to shut down basically everybody.
The Saints have shut down everyone.
I don't know if they've shut down.
They got their first round pick back, and then they shut down everyone.
All right, listen, if that's the hill that you want to die on.
I do want to die on. I wanted to die on Saints D hill last week, too, and it worked just fine. And the week before that. And the week before that. They're good.
And the Saints D last week was in a great spot. This week they're in a pretty good spot, but there's other teams that are, I think, that are in better spots.
I just think people are underestimating the talent of this defense.
Listen, you're right. The people are underestimating the talent on this defense and the upside that they possess, but I don't think that they should be the chalk defense this week. If anything, Jacksonville should be the chalk defense. They're just way too expensive.
I don't like this Jacksonville spot at all.
Why?
Because they faced a ton of bad offenses.
And now they're facing the Colts.
This is a team on the road that lost to the Jets.
Sure. That's fine.
And gave up 471 yards to the Jets.
I mean, they did
471.
Sure. I mean, if we're going to put some stuff into context, Bilal Powell did rush for an 80-yard touchdown in that game when everyone thought he was down.
Okay, they gave up 390 yards to the Tennessee Titans.
Titans have a good offense.
Good, sure. But it's nothing special.
Listen, if you want
371 to Pittsburgh. I think this hype over the Jaguars defense is a little insane. They haven't exactly been out. It's not like they're not the Vikings, who I think are clearly better. I think that's I would take the Saints over the Jaguars in terms of fantasy this week, and it wouldn't be close to me. Jacoby Brissett has managed not to turn the ball over a ton. Sure there's some sack upside, but if they're not going to get a pick six, they're not going to throw the ball a ton. I just don't know where the upside is there with the Jaguars, personally.
I mean, I'm trying to locate pressure on the quarterback, and it seems that going into the week that no team is going to get more pressure on the quarterback than Jacksonville's going to get on Jacoby Brissett.
By the way, is Andrew Luck ruled out?
I'm pretty sure. I don't know if he's officially ruled out yet, but he's not going to be back. Not this week, at least. And even if he is, Andrew Luck loves sacks and picks.
Okay.
Don't we remember that about Andrew Luck?
Let's just hypothetically say he was playing at 5,500. How chalky would he be against the Jaguars, number one pass D?
How chalky would he be? He wouldn't be. No one would play him.
Okay.
I don't think they would, at least. That wouldn't be my first inclination. Is that what he is? $5,500?
Yeah. I was just curious because I don't think he's been officially ruled out because normally they've been ruling him out on. He practiced a couple days last week too. I mean, it probably will be a couple more weeks, but.
Yeah, so for me,
I figured it's either this week or next week, so I figured I would just look at the price just in case.
Who do they play next week? Do you know?
Actually, I do know because it's on the blurb. They face. Actually, it's not on the blurb. I lied. I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
All right. So yeah, the four that I'm going with, if you can afford it, and you want to, I would think that in a normal week, Jacksonville would be the chalk, but I think they're too expensive and people just won't pay up for defense. So I can see using them as a tournament play. I do think that they have substantial upside with the pressure they can generate on the defensive line. So they would be my top end play. Then I go Rams, Chargers, and Bears. I prefer the Rams the best of that bunch. I know you'll throw the Saints into that mix as well, but those are the Jacksonville in isolated spots I'll use. If I use any Fournette, I'll pair them up with Jacksonville defense, and if not, I'll just have a heavy dose of Rams, Chargers, Bears, and whichever one makes it easier for my lineup to work is the one that I'm going to play.
Yeah. I'm really happy to hear that you don't think the Saints D is going to be chalk. This is.
I mean, listen, I could be way off base on this, but I don't. I don't think that they're going to be.
You're the second person to tell me this today, and I just am stunned. I thought recency bias would get everyone in the world on the Saints in a good spot, so I'm quite. I hope I just need this to stick around for a few more days, and then get the Saints D low owned one more time.
Well,
it's been a fun journey.
Well, with you out here hyping them up, coming off a good week, maybe they will end up as chalk. I don't know. We'll see if anyone else latches onto them. But right now, I'm looking at I know it's super early in the week, but by tags on FanShare, they are the second most talked about defense in terms of start them. So sometimes the FanShare tags for defense are tough because people tend to try to save as much money at defense as possible. And if that's the case, I could see the Chargers end up being number one.
Yeah, I think the Chargers will be the highest on defense.
But maybe people pay up for the Vikings. Maybe people pay up for the Panthers, that kind of thing. I mean,
depends how down they pay up on a quarterback too.
It does, but even if you pay down at quarterback, like if you pay down at quarterback and you pay down at tight end, you're probably still going to need to pay down at another spot. And I feel like, I think that people would rather take a $2,400 Chargers defense than paying down and taking like, I don't know, Robert Woods at $4,000. Like they would just get a better receiver in lieu of like having a stout defense. At least that's how my mind works in thinking how people construct their lineups.
Sure, I can see that.
All right, The Siege. Tell everyone where they can find you and read and listen to your work.
Podcast, the Morning Grind podcast.
Yeah, hype whatever you have to hype.
Oh, yeah, no. I'm on the Morning Grind podcast with Stevie over there at Roto Grinders, and I'm always doing Tournament Tactics package where I just discuss tournaments all the time on Roto Grinders. You can find that out all over there.
All right. Is there anything else? Like, is Stevie still killing NASCAR?
NASCAR season's dead. The tournaments are just so small, but it's been yet another profitable season. I love NASCAR. It's my favorite DFS sport. I know basically nothing and make all the money. It's so much fun.
Just by listening to Stevie?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's what I do for MMA. I have my guy. I listen to him, and I'm like, oh, I do way better at this than I do at anything else.
It's just like great. I just can't make stupid pivots. Like I'm just like, well, these are the good plays, so I'm just gonna play them. And suddenly, Pat, when you play all good plays, you make money. What a shocker!
Yeah, I know. Do you think that's a concept that we should apply to the sports that I know a ton about football, a ton about golf, and I feel like I do outsmart myself most weeks. Like, should I just go into it with like, you know what, screw it. If people are chalky, I don't care. I know they're good plays, so I'm gonna play them.
I wish I was smart enough to do that, Pat.
But okay, let's take ourselves out of the situation for a second. Doesn't that make a lot of sense?
Yeah, to play the guys that are in good spots and are good at football or good whatever sport. You would think so, right? That's the name of the game. The game of the game is to get the most points. You don't get extra points for being cute.
But why do we do it then?
Feels good to get a 1% guy on that crushes.
I know, it's so stupid.
It really is.
All right, that will do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. Subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience for the video version on the DraftKings YouTube page and watch it on the DK Live app for the audio version. iTunes, Stitcher, Audio Boom, and Google Play. No matter what device that you have, you can download the Pat Mayo Experience on demand, uncut, always for free. Plus, you can listen to me on TuneIn and iHeartRadio. Again, in the comment section, whether you're on YouTube, Audio Boom, wherever, leave in your two favorite sleepers below $4,500 at running back and wide receiver, and leave your DraftKings name along with it, your handle along with it, and you'll enter the draw for the secret prize, the secret grand prize of the Pat Mayo Experience. If you've already entered, hey, enter again, just more entries for you. Don't be afraid to give the show a like as well and share it around. And the information is so bad that if you want to give it to people that you're playing against, it might work against them and help you win. So don't forget about that part when it comes to sharing it around, all right? I'm Pat Mayo. Good luck in Week 7. I'll see you next time.